With a population of just over 45,000, Columbus is home to 7 National Historic Landmarks and dozens of internationally renowned works of public art. One of those landmarks, First Christian Church, was designed by acclaimed Finnish architect Eliel Saarinen.
So for Columbus to have this very good architect who was on the cusp between understanding the traditional forms of architecture and its reinterpretation through a modern language which looked at industrial works and a pared down simplicity, a removal of what we call ornamentation in favor of simpler, more powerful forms and the presence of light became part of the subject of his architecture and demonstrates these simple, powerful forms of a building from a congregation that didn't give him a program as much as a philosophy, that their building should be as enduring as their faith.
For 78 years, the church's renowned clock tower has pierced the city's sky. Now that beacon of faith and strength is in danger of coming down. To know its history and understand its importance as one of the first modern churches in the U.S. is to appreciate its being a source of great pride for Columbus.
This is the first church I've served with where you have tourists coming in every day that the church is open. And we love that. Overall, I think it is a blessing to have that kind of facility. Also, the architect certainly designed that building with symbolism that proclaims the good news, and we think that's great too.
Columbus, Indiana, 1937. The First Christian Church requires a new, bigger home for their growing congregation. Saarinen's motives for the construction of the church's eye-catching interior would have striking symbolism for its distinctive exterior.
The consequence of having done this is that wall with all those beautiful windows is a wall that not only helps and primarily form the shape of the space of the basilica, it forms the shape of the courtyard that's attached to it, which concludes in the punctuation point of a bell tower that has a clock at the top.
78 years of harsh weather and structural stress have taken a toll on the church's venerated tower. Which brings us to where we are now.
Well, it's important to know that the tower is, first it's 160-some feet tall, and it's a solid masonry structure. So at the bottom it's 30 inches thick of brick, and it narrows as you go up, and there are concrete floors every 20 to 30 feet. So what we're seeing is that there's a lot of cracking in the masonry. And then up at the very top where there's a grid of openings, the steel lintels in each of those, at each level of those openings have rusted substantially. And so at each of those lintels you have about over 1/8 of an inch of expansion, which accumulates to well over an inch of pushing on the masonry all around the openings. That means that you've got a lot of stress and cracking going on the adjacent walls and throughout that area. So that upper area has become very compromised structurally.
We hope through some partnerships with community and other agencies, and certainly with the giving of the congregation, we'll be able to address those so that can continue to be a part of who we are and a part of Columbus.
Construction cost has been estimated based on preliminary design at about $2.4 million. This total includes repairs, contingencies, project management fees, and design fees. So as a fundraising goal, that's what we advise them to be looking at.
And what if the tower were simply to be taken down?
Architecture, when it is interrupted or not so thoughtfully considered, has only a few operative ideas, and the texture is like burlap. This is a silk construction. And if you pull on some of the threads, some of the sensibility of the project dissipates, which is why the preservation of the tower, in fact, the components on both sides are integral to the idea of architecture in this town, and why it makes any of us in design feel hope is because you see a community investing. It's something that comes from the imagination in the future. It's not a dependency on the past.
The community would experience a deep loss should the tower disappear from the city's skyline.
It's kind of kind of the anchor of Columbus's identity about itself. And so if we as a community let that go, I think we've really kind of undermined our own sense of who we are. So I think it would be a really terrible loss, not only to the building, but to the community, as a symbolic thing and as a kind of a work of architecture.
It's up to all of us. Donate today. No amount is too small.